Yo, 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 what's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? It's your hostess with the mostest. It's PKR, Pastor Keenan Riley, back once again with another episode of People Suck, Love Them Anyways. And as always, as I'm bringing the most hypest energy there is, I've got the guy who brings the sun down with him every single day and welcomes you to the darkest of nights without stars.
We have cookies.
I don't even know what that means. Sounds kind of creepy.
That old saying where it's like, "Welcome to the dark side." We have cookies or whatever. It was like an old Star Wars.
I was going "Welcome to the Jungle," but yeah, it's probably a whole other darkness right there that we won't go into.
We don't have cocaine. And
I was going to say drug abuse and alcohol abuse, probably that we will not go down that rabbit hole today. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. Thank you for hitting that download button. Thank you for telling people about us. Thank you for doing all of that stuff. Thank you for, has anybody left rates and reviews? No. So do not thank you for that.
Yeah, do better.
Yeah, exactly. We are retracting that statement back.
Matter of fact, you are the people who suck. Until you leave that review
for you.
Yeah, until you leave that review or rate or comment or email, you also suck.
Yes. We should just do one episode one day and just be like number from 1 to 100 and be like, all right, random person at Kroger that left your shopping cart out, you suck.
Right.
Number 2,
that
random
from,
person.
The Grinch or whatever, when he's like reading through the phone book, he's like, Yodel, yee-hoo, I hate you.
Yeah.
And then he's like reading all these who names. He's like, I hate you. I hate you.
We should have him on here.
Right.
We should have Jim Carrey on, man. He would be a hoot, I feel like.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, man, we hope that you had a blessed week. Hope everything's worked out in your favor. If you have not, man, you need to hit the download button on this podcast and tell somebody. But man, I tell you what, we have just been in a middle. We sing a song here sometimes. We need a move. I feel like we've been in the middle of a move, man.
I hope we're just in the beginning of the move.
Well, there we go. Well, yeah. We're in the middle of the beginning of a move.
There you go. If you're confused, so are we.
Yeah.
So don't feel too bad.
But I feel like, man, we've been in this move for a little while now of just the Holy Spirit, man, working and doing some great things, transitioning people, bringing new faces, new spaces in, and just things like that, man. And today's just another day, another opportunity where we were talking about it. We always talk before we film and record and all kinds of stuff. But Nick felt like his hair was on fire. And
so bad. I sucked today, and I didn't even do the live stream.
He did suck today.
Completely skipped my mind.
But as you can tell, I'm not worried.
The right people were here.
Yeah.
If you were at home, you needed to come.
That's always the cop out. I feel like like if something goes wrong or people don't show up, it's like, yeah, but you know what? People were here that needed to be here. And that's always the funny part to go with. But yeah, I think if you get in ministry long enough, man, like things like that, like I know it sounds kind of cliche or a cop out, but it's like it's a Sunday, like it's one service. It didn't make it on there. It's cool. There'll be other Sundays. There'll be another Sunday. And, and like you said, the people that were here today needed to hear the message. But man, I tell you, I'm thankful, man, I talked to your cousin today, and Alonzo was sitting upstairs, and I said, yo, man, I was like, wait, what are y'all doing upstairs? And he's like, there's no space to sit downstairs. And I'm like, that used to not be a problem, but that's a good problem now. It's a good problem to have, man, where for the first time in 7 years.
Yeah, I actually heard them complaining that they didn't have any donuts when I got here.
I know. It's like for the first time in 7 years, it's like we have no donuts left. We have people setting up top. We've got people parking. This is no slight to other churches, but like we have people parking at another church to come to our church. Now I know you're like, well, that's kind of like I don't know what you would call that, sacrilegious. I don't know, good, yeah. But no, I mean the church that's beside of us is like literally across the road, so it's not like it's not like we're parking a mile down the road and walking or nothing. It's not that cool yet.
They're what, Catholic?
Yeah, that's not cool. No,
they got out a while before we started.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. If I went 9 to 9, man, if I was going with a number 2, it'd be Catholic.
I mean, I don't know why, but
Man, just super chill. I mean,
I don't know
just,
if I'd say chill. I feel like they have most like routine, like follow the rules, specifically do this specifically type situation.
it could be.
That most other denominations don't have.
Yeah,
Like,
but
at least if you're Baptist, you can still kind of sneak in and not get noticed.
I feel that Catholics are pretty predictive.
Oh yeah, they are very predictable. That's
and that, my friends, is what I call chill. If it's predictable, it's chill, bro. You know.
I mean, I'm sure that's what
you're like, yo,
thought too.
Right? Oh well, that dude from the beginning was a little off his rocker. You know, so
people liked him though.
This is true. I mean, there was people who died. You know, who died for the cause, man. So, and that's, I guess, at the end of the day, if that's what you're striving for, more power to you.
There's still people trying to marry Manson in prison.
Yeah,
he finally died.
Yeah, Manson is dead. Yeah,
they're probably still trying to marry
Charlie, not Marilyn. Marilyn's still kicking, I think. Nonetheless,
did I say Marilyn?
No.
Okay,
I was clarifying for the people who might listen to this.
Marilyn Manson. I don't even know what they're doing anymore.
I don't know what he's doing.
I don't want to know. I know he's a rapist, but he's gone off that end.
But. Yeah, I don't know what he's doing.
Wow, this took a weird turn,
man. Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about Jesus. So. And back to church. But anyways, yeah, man, the Spirit has been moving so crazy up in here. People getting saved, people bringing their hearts and lives to Jesus, people getting baptized, people flooding the church, people flooding the altars. This true story. I felt like today was a service and a sermon that was mediocre at best. That's just me. I'm just telling you. Felt like it was mediocre at best. And you don't know how many people I heard today talking and chattering and stuff. It's like, great service today. Like, great service. Like it wasn't.
I thought I was a screw up from the beginning.
Yeah.
Today I was like, wow, this is not going
great. Like, what do you mean great service? Like, and it was just like, even on days now where we feel like that, it's like, man, man, I felt like I could have just went out there and hit a homer and just kind of, swung and missed a little bit or whatever. It's like, the Holy Spirit is so strong in here right now, man, that it's drawing people to the altars. It's, people are praying and people are testifying. And I feel like for the first time in a long time, man, people are actually being real about the struggles and the situations that they have. And I think that, man, that is where we're getting this move from, because people are actually starting to get free from a lot of burdens and weights that they've been carrying in their life. And once they start to do that, then you're seeing these people get free and experience freedom in Jesus. And just it's a whole outpouring.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I think I made a joke on your Facebook post this morning. I was like, don't come at me this early.
Yeah.
Before service even started, he was talking about
what
he was going to talk about.
I heard it.
And it was definitely a message. I know, like we say it all the time. It's always a message we need to hear too. But it was definitely one I needed to hear today. Like I said, this is the first time in a long time that I was up at this altar, literally crying. And it's some tears that I've been needing to get out for a couple weeks now.
Right.
But it's been like I said, like as Keenan said, I feel like my hair is on fire here recently. But a lot of stuff going on.
I told him, welcome to the party,
welcome
man.
to the party. Welcome to the jungle. We'll go back there again. But again, it's been pretty crazy. Copyright.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, it's there's a lot going on. Like I said, I feel like I have put a lot of faith and trust in the Spirit. Especially this year. And what God wants to do, and what God, how God wants to use the Spirit, through fruition, through myself, through the birds and the trees and the air, but again, today,
now you're sounding like a naturalist.
I know that's probably better than the Catholic. I'm a jigger anyway. But again, we're talking just about like it really today was hitting me. It was before I even came up to the altar, I was about to cry. I knew this was one of those Sundays I knew God, I need to come up here. It wasn't about me praying for somebody else. God was like, you need some prayer. You need to come up here. You need to open up. You need to let stuff out. You need to cry, as I did. Again, those are tears that I said I've been holding in for weeks now, maybe even months at this point.
Where did they go?
Yeah, I don't know. They're probably in this carpet somewhere with all the baptismal water.
Yeah.
But it's mixed in there somewhere. But again, I think it's awesome because I've been able to see a lot of people be more free, be more open, and to experience things, and I say this all the time. It's really kind of what I was trying to get at. I never used to be the type of person to cry in front of anybody. I held my tears in at my grandparents' funerals. I held my tears in at my aunt's funeral. Like I I was not the type of person who showed emotion. It was something that I was told from a young kid. It kind of you had that mentality. Men don't cry. You don't show your emotion like that. And
Big
I didn't
girls.
have right.
Big girls don't cry either.
We're not going to copyright again. We're going to get a lot of trouble for this episode. But again, it's something to me. There's so many times in my life that I was held up in these pews, needing to come up here and cry and pray and all those sorts of, yeah, exactly. The devil had me at gunpoint, like, don't go. It's just, I was held up at these pews, not moving forward, not coming up, not being free, not expressing, not testifying, not praying, not, crying, whatever. And it's nice to be able to be at a point in my walk with Christ to where I can, I can be over here working a camera for no reason today, but feel the Spirit of God still, moving through Keenan's message and, speaking directly to my situation and the things that I've been dealing and struggling with. I would say if you didn't listen to it. But again, I was back behind the camera for no reason. But again, just talking about what he talked about in his message, about being, prepared and trusting in God and waiting on Him, and trusting that He's going to do things in His time, and it's all going to work out. Instead of keep trying to take control of it yourself because you're panicking and worried and frustrated and anxious. Trusting in Him instead of panicking and making decisions while you're panicking, because those are not going to be good decisions.
True.
And I have been living in that a lot lately. Just being panicked and trying to make decisions, and they haven't turned out well or haven't turned out right. There's been a lot of things that we've been waiting for, and I get frustrated not knowing why it's taking so long or what's doing this or doing that. But again, just be able to experience the freedom of Christ and the freedom, to have that Spirit, take hold of me throughout the service. And before I even came up to the altar, I was over there crying a little bit. And like I said, when I just came up to this altar, my whole body, and again, not to get, all detailed, but, my body was shaking. I was crying. Like I could feel that weight kind of coming off of me finally.
That sounds more like hormonal.
I mean, it may have been, it's not quite my time of the month, but I like, again, just so much stuff that I've been dealing with over the past couple of weeks. He's dying over here. But just over the last couple of weeks that I've been dealing and struggling with. But it was nice to be at a point with Christ where I can come up to this altar and be around other people who are experiencing the same thing. Getting free in Christ, allowing the Spirit to move, being prayed over, and all those sorts of things. It's nice to be a part of that, to experience that, to watch that, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, man, it is an uplifting to everybody around. I had the opportunity last night. I told this in service today, which nobody's seen online, and I told this today that I had an opportunity to go talk to a little girl last night. She's 11 years old, and she's one of the ones who got baptized today, and her mom and dad just wanted me to kind of talk to her, kind of see where her heart and her head was at, make sure it was in the right place, make sure she wasn't doing this for the wrong reasons. It's every parent's worry. I get it. But the more that we talked, it became less about baptism and more about heart placement. And, we started peeling back little layers of things that were going on in her life. And at 11 years old, she's dealing with bullying, and she's dealing with body shaming, and she's dealing with gossip, and she's dealing with just mean people. And as she was beginning to expose this and talk about this, her eyes just filled up with tears, and like she could barely even muster sentences together at that point. And I called it word vomit. Like she basically just started in, and like one story led to another story, led to another story, led to another story. And it probably took a good 30 to 45 minutes to work through all of it. But by the time that we got done at the end of the conversation, I told the church this today, and I can't put it into words, but she wasn't the same person. After she got all of that out, and she got it out on the table and just got it out from her heart, she was free from that. And she was calm. She was at peace. She had a smile on her face. I told the church, I was like, I gave her a hug. I said, I love you. I'm proud of you. And she's like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, I didn't do anything, but thank you, so much. And today had an opportunity to go to lunch with a guy after church who literally showed up at church today. He's a friend of mine. But this is the first time, like he drove a little over an hour to get here, to come to church. And he has a church and he has a pastor, and I'm not saying, we're better and we're this and we're that. We are, but but no, I'm just playing. But you know, he said he felt like the Holy Spirit told him this morning he needed to get up, come to church, and have a conversation with me today. And we talked, and we start peeling back layers. Same situation. We start peeling back layers of his life where he's a Christian, he knows Jesus, he knows forgiveness and grace and mercy. But because of something that happened 7 years ago, 7 years, he has beat himself up and lived in condemnation for so long that happiness, peace, joy, love, contentment, things like that in his life are gone. And there's this painful, heartbreaking story that he's living out in his eyes. Like, you can see it in his eyes. Mm-hmm. And, we talked, man, like for probably over an hour. And just the greatest to me form of ministry, man, is not preaching, or witnessing, man. Sometimes it can just be listening to people and allowing people to open up and have a conversation, and just making people feel comfortable to have that conversation. And, like, again, we get back to the church parking lot. He gets out and he's like, brother, I tell you, the next time I see you, he's like, I'm not going to be the same person. He's like, I already feel better. He's like, I already feel this weight, this burden has been lifted. And more people, I think, are coming to the realization that if they voice their situations and stop carrying around so much stuff, and something pretty profound, I think, anyways, said it while I was eating today. But I said, I think we've, as Christians, began to get this whole situation backwards. Instead of coming to church and talking about the Christian we haven't been and preparing ourselves for the Christian we need to be to go out into the world, we come in here like we've been super Christian all week and we don't need any work. So then when we go out in the world, we're a hot mess Monday through Saturday. And we've gotten it flipped. And because we've gotten it flipped, we never really work on, ourselves or our situations or anything like that while we're in here. And this is the place, this is the time, this is the moment that we're supposed to do that. This is the place, the time, and the moment in which we come in here and we address our flaws and our situations, and we become better. And because we become better, we get free from them. And now what does the book say? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Well, obviously the Spirit of the Lord is here, man, because we're watching people in real time on Sundays, Wednesdays, not on live stream. We're watching people have chains fall off their lives in real time, man. And it's an amazing thing. But not only that, like, we go back to the beginning, it is an uplift to people around, to see, like, oh man, you're getting free over there, and that person's getting free, and that person's doing this and that person's doing that. And it's like, it's an amazing thing to be a part of, and people want to be a part of something positive and moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also want to speak to something in that same vein there. There's probably people out there, because I've been this person, so I know that these people are still in church services, but I know there are probably people, maybe they listen to this, maybe they don't, but I think regardless, the truth is that there are people who witness these things. They watch, people coming up to the altar and crying and shaking. They hear the testimonies, they see the pastor crying as he's baptizing people, and all those sorts of things. And I think it's just, I know there are people out there who are asking, or I don't always say asking the question, but they're thinking, like, I wish that could be me. Like, I've been in that moment before where I've looked out at people who are experiencing freedom in the Spirit, and testifying and all that, and like, man, I was like, I wish I could have that freedom. Yeah. I wish I could feel that way. I wish I could experience that. And as I sit here today doing this podcast, I can tell you that that has been me. I've been able to reach that point, but it's all a part of what we talk about in this podcast so often, about being vulnerable, getting plugged in, getting connected, coming consistently, being passionate. All these different things that we talk about on this podcast, week after week, it takes that, and that connection with one another. When you start to become more comfortable with the people around you, you don't care what they think anymore, to an extent, depending on how, what people you're around. But
I never cared to
I never,
begin with.
and that's a good trait to have. A lot of people don't have that,
Sometimes,
unfortunately.
yeah, sometimes.
But I think once you start again taking it on yourself to go over and talk to those new people, or talk to those people who've been here 2 or 3 weeks, get to know them. Try to see what they like, talk to their kids. Get to know them. Try to get them a little bit more connected, bring them back into the fold here. You're going to start to see that spread where all of a sudden that person who came to them and talked to them is being open and honest, and now they feel like they can be open and honest about what they're dealing and struggling with. They feel comfortable enough that the people in this building are going to love on them and care about them and encourage them and motivate them.
Yeah.
They're not going to rebuke them. They're not going to condemn them. They're not going to hate on them. They're going to love them and nurture them. So that's why it's so important, as the everyday Christian, as we used to call this podcast, to really connect and to dive in and get more personal and get more vulnerable with the people around you in these pews, rather than just coming in, sitting down, getting up and leaving, because you will be that person who looks out and says, I wish I could have that freedom. I wish I could experience that. And it's like you said in the sermon, you get in what you put into it, or you get out what you put into it. I think that's how I said it. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, you get out of it what you put into it. Totally botched it the first time.
Yeah, I did.
But you did. You pulled out.
I redeemed it.
You did good.
Yeah. But again, you have to. It's everybody's job in here. Two different things. It's the person's job to put in what they want to get out, and it's the people around them's job to pour into those people, so they can also see the results of that, so they can also put out what they're wanting to see and receive what they want to see. And I know that may sound confusing, but you want to be able to pour into the people here so they're more comfortable to pour out what they've been dealing with, is really what I'm trying to say. You want to make sure that the people around you are comfortable enough with being vulnerable, and that they're looking to you as a good, positive example to one day, hopefully move towards that direction of being more vulnerable and moving with the Spirit and trusting the Spirit. And I think it's an important part of church, is that community aspect of it alongside the vulnerability aspect of it. And, we talked, I think it was last week on the podcast, we talked about, those Sundays where, there wouldn't be a single soul coming up to this altar week after week after week after week. And we would get frustrated, we'd get discouraged, we'd get upset, and I can't. And when you said that last week, it really just reminded me how thankful I am to be where we are now, where we have, it seems, like there were times that we didn't do a baptism for like 6, 7, 8 months, it seemed like, and now we've done, several over the last month. Like we feel like, every other week we're almost doing them. And we have more and more people coming forward and willing to do so. And, it's wonderful to feel, it's wonderful to see, it's wonderful to experience. And again, I know that there are probably people out there who are seeing it and who want what other people have. And what I want to say to you, if you are that person, is to be brave enough and be bold enough to be vulnerable enough to experience what these other people are experiencing. Sitting in that pew, not saying a word, not talking to anybody else, that may be easy, that may be comfortable, but it's not going to get you any further than you want to go. And you need to be brave and bold enough to step out and to talk to other people, get connected, build up that confidence, and really expose who you are and what you're dealing with to the people around you, so that way nobody else can. If everybody already knows what's wrong with you, I think we made a joke about it. Maybe it was last week. Like with Eminem and 8 Mile. He rapped about everything that everybody else knew about him and was talking bad about him already.
Right.
If you're vulnerable and confident enough to do that, and to tell everybody in here what you're already dealing and struggling with, maybe on a one-on-one situation at first, you're going to be a lot more comfortable doing it in front of a lot of other people.
Yeah, and I think honestly, whenever we start talking about our struggles, and it's not please forgive me for what I'm about to say, Lord, it's not a pissing contest. We get in those contests sometimes with people, oh, well, you got this going on? Well, let me tell you about what I got going on, and it's like, it's not the right heart placement to reveal your problems in. We're not telling our problems to see who's got the bigger mountain. We're supposed to be telling our problems so we can pray to a bigger God, and
specifically.
And specific, yeah. I mean, I'm very, 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 very adamant about you telling me what is going on in your life. The rule of thumb that I've always had and operated by is that if I'm going to pray for you, I want to be directional and I want to be specific about what we're praying about. If you just come and say, I have an unspoken prayer request, or I got a prayer, would you just remember me in prayer? I mean, if I just go to God in prayer and I say, Lord, remember such and such in prayer, what?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
God's like, which part?
Yeah, like what are we
Their
talking about at this
finances,
point?
their mental
Yeah,
health,
yeah,
physical health.
what are we talking about? I could be praying for you to get a dog and you're allergic to them. I don't know, you know. So in that regards, I've just always operated by the rule of thumb that if you're going to come and ask for me to pray for you, I'm going to be like, what do you want me to pray about? You know. Now, kind of like today, where I'm like, hey, Miss Kelly, can I put your business out in the streets? And she's like, nope, not right now. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm like, well, ex-nate that from the sermon, God, you know, let's go. But you know, that's I always make sure, like, if I'm going to volunteer information, that it's okay to do it. You know, and today she gave to me afterwards, and she was like, "Look, it's not the fact I didn't want." She's like, "None of the rest of my family knows yet. That's it." You know, and I'm like, "Oh, cool." You know, but you know, we have to get comfortable, man, with those terminologies of you know, of being vulnerable, like you said, with other people, with God. And this, man, this is our, whether we want to admit it or not, man. Um, Outside of this place, man, like I have very few friends and family. Um, a lot of people might be like, "Well, that's kind of sad," you know, and I'm no, not really. So I'm good with my
I
circle
used to be
being.
upset about it.
Yeah, it's like, nah, man, I'm good. But outside of this place, I have very few friends and family. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing, I feel like, because, you know, these people that I see, like, and I'm seeing faces right now. We're taping this, but I'm seeing faces. I'm seeing, you know, people sitting in rows and where they sit at and all of that good stuff. And it's like, you know, these people are my friends and family. And so if I can't be comfortable with exposing who I am in front of my friends and family, then who can I be comfortable with? And you know, I got tickled whenever you said, you know, you used to not cry and you used to hold it in and things like that. And you know, whenever I was a young guy, I was the same way. Nick, if you don't know it or not, how old are you?
26.
26. So Nick is like me 14 years ago, pretty much. You know, so if you can imagine what I was like 14 years ago, I was a smoother talker, but a lot of our mannerisms
I
and
just learned how
stuff.
to talk like 2 years ago.
Yeah, this is true. But our mannerisms, a lot of our mannerisms and thought process and stuff like that, you know, mine was the same back then as what his is now. So that's the reason why a lot of times I'm like, you just got to wait. Like, you got to wait like 12 years and you'll be good. Don't worry, you know.
It's a long time.
It is a long time to wait, trust me. But, you know, I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I used to be that guy too. Now I can't even make it through a sermon. I can't. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I can't even make it through the prepping of a sermon without just being like, you know. And I'm like, I mean, just I'm not afraid anymore to be that guy to be like, I'm trying. Like, I was just telling the story today just about buying a lady a battery this week, and I'm like trying to just tell people about how good God is, and it's like I start talking about how good God is, and I'm like, you know, and I start crying and stuff, man, and I'm like, but this is just, I come unhinged at stuff like that, and I think people, um, the main thing I tried to get over to this guy I went and ate with today is that, like, you know, look, man, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter Joe Blow's opinion about you, or you know, their judgment of what you done or what you said, or how you reacted. That part doesn't matter. Have you gotten forgiveness from God? Yes or no? Does God love you? Yes or no? Has God given you another opportunity? Yes or no? And if you can check yes to those three questions, you know what? Who cares? Who absolutely cares? I don't. You know, I absolutely don't care. You could come up today and go, it's the worst service I ever sat in my life. And I'll go, okay, did it please God? Does God love me? Will God give me another opportunity? And if those three check marks are yes, what did your opinion solve? Absolutely nothing. You know, because we're going to come back in and we're going to glorify God next week.
Remember that about the live stream.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it's same way, same situation. 15 years ago, if Nick would have come up and said, hey, yeah, didn't start the live stream today, you know, I'd have been like, what are you doing? What do you mean you didn't start the live stream? Like, are you kidding me? It's like 2 buttons, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And literally, like, he came up today and he's like, don't fire me. And I'm like, well, it's hard to fire somebody. Don't get paid.
For that.
Yeah. And he's like, but I didn't start the live stream, man. None of it got online today. And I'm like, oh, well, there's next Sunday, man.
Meanwhile, I was about to throw myself off.
Yeah. We had this
here.
conversation on top of the roof.
Yeah, he was talking me down. But
yeah, and it's like, man, you get to a point in time in ministry. I think you get to a point in time in church. You just get to a point in time in your relationship with God where, it's like you just expose and be vulnerable. And the more that you are, the more that He works. And the more that He works, the more He shows His glory off. The more that He shows His glory off, the more you testify about it. The more you testify about it, the more people want to hear about it and want what you have. And then at that moment, it comes down to full circle what we've been talking about. It comes down to if you're willing to be willing, available, and obedient to receive what He's got in store.
Yeah, and it's a tough process. It's not something that we understand. Like people aren't going to just jump right on board. And,
it's exactly what you said. It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. It takes time. It takes moving. I mean, a lot of people may look at me and be like, you're 26. There's still a lot of life left. But to me, those last 26 years have felt very long. But I've what I mean by that is, like
buckle up,
buttercup.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about the next 26. But just or the next 14, as you said, to get to wherever you're at, that scares me a little bit. But I mean, it's a process. It took a very, very long time for me to even get to the point where I'm at now. This is what I just said to Keen. I didn't learn how to really talk to people until probably maybe 4 years ago. I said 2, but maybe about 4 years ago, I started to learn how to talk in front of people, to people, all those sorts of things. I've really started to heavily invest in myself over the last 4 years. Back when I was 22, I was just now starting this process that God had been working on in the background for years and years and years. And it is a process. There are people here who they give their life to Jesus at a VBS at 8 years old, and they live for Him the rest of their life. And there's people like me who gave their life to Jesus at VBS when I was, like 8, 10, 12 years old, something like that. And it took me another 10 years before I was able to start living in His plan and purpose for my life. Yeah. And it may take some people 20 more years before they start living in that plan and purpose. And, I guess, it's what we're trying to say is, you might as well get on board now.
Right.
Get on board now so you can start living for His plan and purpose even longer than you would if you'd waited another 10, 20 years. Be vulnerable and be bold enough and be confident and be bold enough to stand up and stand out for God and do what He's calling you to do. Get out of your comfort zone back there in the back pew where you're just trying to get in and out. When you're looking at these other people being free, and you want that, get that.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, it's all about decisions. Every decision you make has consequences, and there's always something corresponding to that decision you make. You have the opportunity every single Sunday to come up to this altar and pray. And even as it says, if you don't get an answer, keep knocking. Keep knocking on that door. Keep praying. Keep trying. Keep moving. Keep trusting. Like I said, that's the season I'm in right now. Is I'm having to keep going and keep coming to God and keep praying and keep trusting and keep going and keep praying and keep trusting. Over and over again. Waiting to see these promised results that I have faith God will provide.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy process. There are days over the last couple of weeks I have felt like just giving up on everything and just screaming and resorting back to old things and old habits and just I'm thankful that I have that faith and that security and that anchor in my life that holds me down and says it's going to be okay. It just keep going on a little bit longer. All this stuff is going to make sense in the long run because I've been in situations before where I thought it was never going to end, and I can look back now and say, oh, it all made sense. It all worked out. I'm in a much better situation right now than I ever thought I would be in. When I was 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, looking forward, I had such a short-term mindset that I could barely imagine what my life would be like tomorrow, and it was such a hard thing to imagine what my life would be like, in 4, 5, 10 years. And I still have difficulties with that sometimes, and a lot of people get really mad at me because I am so short-sighted. But again, I'm a work in progress, as we just said. It's a process.
You balance me out, man.
Right? Yeah, we're like a yin and yang a little bit.
You bring me down from from Pluto, like you bring me down from there to like back to planet Earth, you know.
Like, that's a lot of planets. That's a lot of planets.
Yeah, it's a lot of planets.
It's a lot of planets. But you know, I do try, and like so, this is one of those things. It's a process, you know, and it's all about making progress. You know, as I said, you know, I spent the later, you know, or I don't say later part, whatever. I spent, you know, the last, you know, before I learned how to talk to people and before I started coming here to fruition, you know, I'd say back, you know, before 2020, you know, I was living my life very selfishly and in a very dark place. I was very cynical, very hateful, very judgmental, very, you know, all these sorts of things. And so I'm working, you know.
That was just yesterday, ladies and gentlemen.
That was just yesterday. No, 2020 was not just yesterday. 2019 was not just yesterday. But as I said, you know, it's a process. It's, you know, it takes time. It takes, you know, you have to work on it and be better. You know, I try to, you know, over the last couple of years, I've tried to put more effort and time into, you know, reading, you know, other books and, you know, listening to more motivational people and try to bring more positivity to my life, because positivity is a choice that we have to make, especially with someone like myself who's naturally cynical. As we've talked about time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this little Eeyore can smile from time to time. He can, you know, bring some light and joy, make people laugh from time to time. But it is a work in progress. Yeah, that little so-so that he just handed out if you're not on camera watching. But again, you know, I do try to do better and be better. And, you know, it's you know, looking and thinking about who I used to be, you know, even the act of walking up to someone and saying good morning to them would have never been in his vocabulary. Like it may not seem like a lot to some people,
you
but
just
to me,
referred
it's
to
a lot.
yourself in the third person.
Hey, I do that a lot sometimes.
Okay,
You know,
all
it's
right. I
fine.
didn't know if
Yeah.
you meant to do that or not. But
little
yeah.
Nick sucked. Or younger Nick sucked. But again, just, you know, there, it's a process. It will take time. It will take effort. It will take making the right decisions and trusting God with the. I think back a lot to the Serenity Prayer. I know it's something I think a lot of Catholics probably right. We've been digging on them a lot, but you know, it's like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a Catholic prayer.
I don't know. It's called the Serenity Prayer. But you know, it's something a lot of people. I work in substance abuse treatment, and so it's a lot of like when people in AA meetings, Alcoholic Anonymous, you know, they say that prayer and stuff. We say that prayer at the beginning of every meeting we have at work. But you know, it's something that I've said so many times here recently at work that I've almost lost the sense of what it means. And when I take the chance to really listen to it and think about it, you know, it really is a lot of wisdom in that prayer. You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change. There's a lot of things in your life you're not going to be able to change. A lot of circumstances you're not going to be able to change. You can try to with all your might, and you're just going to end up disappointed, which again is something that I've lived in here recently, is trying to change things, trying to plan things out, trying to make things work, and they're just not going to work. You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, be vulnerable enough to stand up, to come up to this altar, to talk to someone about your problems, be courageous enough to be vulnerable and talk about what you're dealing and struggling with, and to help somebody else out, to step out of your comfort zone, to take a leap of faith and do something like buy a battery for someone, or to pray that someone, you know, that you are put on someone else's heart, and, you know, all these sorts of things that it takes courage and bravery to do. And then asking God for wisdom to know the difference between what I can change and what I have to trust in Him to change.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult thing to do. Trust me, I've been there here recently fighting that battle of trying to change everything and handle everything and manage everything, thinking that I'm letting God handle it, but not letting Him handle it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, again, that's where that wisdom to know the difference comes into play. You know what you can and can't do, know your limits, know what God can do. God has no limits. You know, that thing that you're trying so hard to accomplish and you can't accomplish it, give it to God, because He can accomplish it. You know, you may not be able to accomplish it, or God may have something better for you or something different for you that's going to be better for you. So, you know, just there's a lot in there, and I think it's something that, you know, it's important to remind yourself of. Like I said, we remind ourselves of it at every meeting at work, but, you know, just that prayer, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was thinking
else?
about. I guess I was thinking about that. Like, sounded good. Don't know.
I don't really know where it originates from.
Probably Pinterest. If I had to take a stab at it, man. Most.
It might be. It's, I mean, is it in the Bible?
Most cliche things are from Pinterest.
Yeah,
I feel like. I do feel like so. But yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, being real. I know man, I know, like, we got to get some content or something, because like every statement we say, it's like, I know we've said this 1,000 times, so it's like
we need to go back to like reviewing news articles.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah,
like change it up.
Yeah, we got to change it up. But being real, man, is something that cannot be replaced. And more people, man, will be appreciative and thankful for you being real. I feel like than anything else. Now, not negativity real. Not
Don't do
the
as I do.
not the solar eclipse real. But being real is in the fact of like being real about your struggles. Being real about your situations, being real about what you've got going on. And that's the reason why like people may think that like I love telling how God took my stupidity and turned it into something good, or how God took my deficiency and turned it into something good. I love telling stories like that. And I finished out the service today with a story like that about that lady with the car battery, but it goes deeper than that because I literally the week that we prayed about Hannah and talked about Hannah and talked about how she was just God, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you and he will serve you all the days of his life. Like, she was basically saying, God, if you give me this, if you bless me with this, I'll give it all back to you, you know. And from that moment, I told the church today, I started praying differently. I changed it up and said, Lord, you know, put my needs on someone else's heart to be able, because I said, we're givers. We love to give. We love to bless. We love to serve. We love to do all of that. But I would also love to do it on such a grand scale that it's like, man, you just, that you just see people's lives change before your eyes. And that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And last week, guy just randomly comes up to me and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "I was supposed to do this a couple weeks ago." That's how crazy it is. Supposed to do this a couple weeks ago. He's like, "But just never had the opportunity. Stuff didn't work out." He's like, "But God told me to give you this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So, literally, I didn't look at anything. I went home. I told my wife. I said, you know, God's blessed us. I said, here's the way I prayed. You let me know what you think. She said, well, obviously, if you prayed like that, she's like, we need to do as much as what we can. I said, okay. I said, well, keep your ears open. We'll see what happens this week. So Friday this week, going to work. Lady's been struggling all week, jumping her car, back and forth to work, jumping it before work, after work, pouring down rain, everything else. You don't know, in Kentucky, it's rained for like 40 days, 40 nights. It's been pretty
I ain't
stupid.
seen the daylight in 3 dang days.
Yeah, yeah. That's what Kid Rock said. Yeah, that's what he said. Cheryl Crow too. Shout out Cheryl. But it was an opportunity at that moment in time to give back as God has given to us. And in that moment in time, this lady she's not I guess I should really watch how I say non-believer, maybe an unbeliever. Maybe it's not the fact that she don't believe in God, it's just like she don't have a relationship with God. Yeah, she's not a practicing. There we go. That's the proper term. But she doesn't have a relationship with Jesus, and like we blessed her with a car battery, man. I mean, like it's not. Is it a heart? No. But will it make her life a tad bit easier? Yes. And dude, it was an expense. I hadn't bought a car battery. 1,000% honesty. Whenever I heard the story, this is 1,000% honesty. I was like, I'm just gonna pull out 100 and give it to her. That's what I was gonna do. And as God is my witness, I was gonna pull out 100 to give it to her. And the Lord spoke to me and He said, "Why would I bless you fully for you to only half bless somebody else?" I said, "Dadgum you, Lord." I'm like, "Dadgum you, Lord." So I look on the internet at car batteries, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm glad I just didn't give $100 because I can't find $100 car battery anymore. Not unless they're already used, at a junkyard or something." And it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah. So, anyways,
power your power wheel.
Right. Yeah. So I looked it up, man, and by the time you pay core charge and everything, it was like $215 or something, And so, we got her a battery. Now, this lady, she breaks down, she's crying, and she's one of the first things she says is, I can never repay you. I'm like, absolutely not. You don't have to. This is not why we do this for. And I just said a few statements. I said, God loves you, and I want you to know that. God loves you. I said, I love you. I know that's weird for a guy to say to a lady that probably he's not married to or not in his family or something like that. But, I was like, I love you. And I said, I want you to know that there's still good people in the world. Those are my three things. God loves you. I love you. And I still want you to know there's good people in the world. So for somebody who might be listening to this, don't think you're going to get a handout from me, number one. But no, for somebody who's listening to this who literally might be in the same shape as that lady, it may not be a car battery. It may be rent. It may be an appliance. It may be a relationship. I don't know. Maybe sickness, whatever. There's three things that I want to say. I want to say that God loves you. I want to say that I can't speak for Nick. I love you. And there's still good people in the world. And there's still good people who listen to God in the world. And whenever I started praying, Lord, put our needs on other people's hearts. It's not the fact that God can't answer prayers. It's not the fact that God can't supply needs. What I'm praying for literally not only blessed our family, but like I was telling today, it blessed that lady. It blessed another individual it blessed two more individuals who didn't have a relationship with Jesus. One other individual helped put that battery in. One other individual saw the random act of kindness taking place, and I had an opportunity to explain about it. But not only that, it started by one person who had the means, we've talked about this, had the means to do something great. And because they listened to God and responded, was the cause of something great happening in the process. And I'm not saying it works for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody in the world should change up the way they pray and be like, just put my needs on somebody else's heart. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you go back and you read the book of Acts and you go back and you read the start of that church, everybody's needs were met. That's what the Bible says. And they were met. Now, I'm not taking anything out of God's hands, but they were met by other people giving with a generous heart from God what they had.
From God.
Yes, to meet that need. And so what I am saying is that, it may not be beneficial to you to say, hey, look, put my needs on somebody else's heart, blah, 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 blah. Because if God answers that prayer, it's to supply your need in order for you to give to someone else who has a need. So if you're only praying for you, that prayer life might not work for you. But if you're looking to get in the game of, Lord, this is just going to be a rotational, what do I call it? Like a revolving door of blessings.
Communism.
Yeah, at its finest.
sharing.
At its finest, baby. We're stirring it up real thick here at Fruition, man. But if you want to get in the opportunity of not only being blessed, but being a blessing, I would highly suggest that you get into that game of, again, lack of probably better words, probably shouldn't have called it a game, but that you should get into the mindset of saying, Lord, I tell you what, man, whatever I get, I'm fully giving it back to you, regardless of what it is. I get a husband or a wife, guess what? That relationship is going to you. I get a new job, Lord, maybe it's a $5,000 pay raise. Hey, what's 5,000? 500. $500, bam, straight to you, Lord. We'll talk about tithing another day. But whatever it is, give it back to the Lord and see what happens. See how he multiplies what you give.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going back to what we talked about with Hannah, just God gave her more kids as a result of her, trusting him with one.
With the first one, right.
And just what, and I think I posted on Facebook something along the lines of, what are you withholding from God that's causing him to withhold your blessings? Something along those lines is kind of how I said it. But I think it's important for us to think about that. What are you withholding from God? What are you withholding from people
Yeah.
around you that again, you have the means, you have the ability to meet other people's needs, meet other people's lack,
Yeah.
and as a result of you being obedient to what God has called you to do by giving to others, He may bless you as a result of that with what you are dealing and struggling with. You're waiting for something to come through, waiting for a pay raise, waiting for a promotion, and God's like, hey, there's that person over there at your church who's been walking to church every single Sunday. You have that extra car you don't need. Give that to them so they can make it to church every Sunday safely and quicker and more
Right.
conveniently and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Maybe you giving that car. Now, I mean, again, we're not saying that this is exactly how it's going to work every single time, but
Right.
I am of the mindset of, if I'm doing what God has called me to do, I will be taken care of.
Yep.
If I'm, that has been proven true more in the last 4 years than ever before in my life, because I have been giving more to God, serving more, in the kingdom of God, helping other people, pouring into other people, and as a result, I do still struggle with a lot of things. There are a lot of things I still need, a lot of things that I'm still waiting on,
Mhm.
but I have been provided for, nothing I have needed, I have gone without. And I think that's just an important thing to remember. There's, and you may be somebody out there listening and be like, well, I don't ever give and I still have everything I need. Well, maybe, that you're lying to yourself. Number one, I
Right.
guarantee you there's some kind of need, there's some kind of lack in your life, whether that's emotionally, physically, financially, whatever
Yeah.
else, there's some kind of need in your life. There's not a single person on this planet who doesn't have some kind of need in their life. And if you feel like you have it all together and you feel like you're doing better than 99% of the people in this congregation or whatever business you're sitting in every day, then you need to start being more generous.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to give all your, I mean, in the Bible, Jesus told people to give all their wealth to the poor, give everything they had to other people. And they would be given eternity as a result of that. That's the last thing he needed to do to get saved. That one guy in the Bible, as he's talking to Jesus, well, I followed all the rules and all the commandments. What else do I need to do? Sell everything and follow me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what we got to do. There's times, like I said, I had a conversation with Dad the other day. He said, there comes times when, in order to make things work for your family and those around you, you have to sacrifice a little. You have to take away some from your, surplus and give to other people. And, sometimes you have to sacrifice your wants and desires so your needs will be taken care of.
Yeah.
There's so many different times that's held true in my life, and I've had to make sacrifices, and there's going to be sacrifices I'm going to have to make in the coming weeks to make sure that we're going to be taken care of. And again, I don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as trusting God and not being selfish.
Yeah.
I know that I could keep these things, and I know I could, do these things, and I'd probably still be okay. We'd struggle a little bit more, but I know we'd still be okay. But again, that's me being selfish. And there's a lot of selfish Christians out there. There's a lot of selfish people out there, and that's why people suck. We talk about them every week. But there's selfishness, greediness, all those sorts of things are withholding you and keeping you from the blessings that you need. And again, we, as Keenan said, we can talk about tithing another day. But if you're sitting in here in a church service every week and you're serving and you believe that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing for the kingdom of God, but you're sitting on your money, you do not trust God with it. You do not trust God, period, if you do not trust God with your money. You do not trust God with the things that He has already given you, then you don't trust God. And I fully, truly, 100% believe that. There are people sitting on their money in churches and congregations throughout this planet. And not to say that, and we say this all the time. I mean, there's church isn't a business, but we can only keep the lights on one way. God will provide through people for us to keep these lights on and to keep doing what we're doing every week, every month, every year. And if you are keeping, if you're sitting on your money and you're being selfish and you're being greedy and you're not doing what God's called you to do, you are holding up the kingdom of God. And if you are holding up the kingdom of God, you will be held liable for that. Somehow, some way, some shape, some form. And when you let go of that, when you start to give, when you start to trust God with your finances and God with everything that He has already given you, you will notice that lack will go away at some point, some way, some shape, and some form. He will provide where you have given. And I think that's something that we all need to think about a little bit more and have a little bit more faith in, and just to trust. Because again, like I said, there's people sitting in here every single Sunday. Just in this church, Fruition Church, there's people sitting in here every Sunday that have needs that other people in this church could meet. And again, we're not going to know what those needs are until you're vulnerable and confident enough to stand up and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. I'm struggling with this. I need help here.
Right.
Because, again, we're not going to know there's a lack if you don't tell us there's a lack.
Yeah.
If you need extra money to pay a bill, nobody's going to know about it. If you need extra money, and again, You know, this isn't an excuse to just go out here and ask for money from everybody, but you know, again, you know, it's part of being vulnerable. Yeah, right. Just Keenan with his little Monster Energy drink.
Yeah, I'm
Spare
shaking my
spare
can
change.
to see if anybody's got any change.
But you know, again, I think it's important for us to be vulnerable, and it's important for us to help out people once they are vulnerable enough to admit their needs and admit the things they're struggling with. It is our job as Christians to stand up and to stand out for them and to give what we have to help them out. And in the process of doing that, we will be blessed as well.
Amen. Sorry.
No,
Was that a good way to? I thought
that was a pretty good way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I wanted to see what it felt like to be that person on the other end. It's like, where do I say amen at? Amen.
Right, amen.
See what happens. But
Is
thank
it
you
as
guys.
hard as they act like it is?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. I see where they struggle. I struggle, you know. But thank you guys so much, man, for tuning in, for being a part of this today. We hope that it blessed you in some sort of way. And as always, keep hitting that download button. Keep telling people about People Suck, Love Them Anyways. And until we see you again, man, we love you and be blessed.